Welcome to the Weather Briefing's winter weather preview for 2015-2016. We've got a whole lot going on here on this set of maps and charts. A lot of debate going on this year about the effects of El Nino. It's a strong El Nino this year, which normally implies certain sets of weather conditions. But will it be exactly the same as we've seen before? And what areas will it cover? What areas will it affect more and affect less? We're going to see all that coming up here in a few minutes. We've got the National Weather Service outlook, the Climate Prediction Center, also involved with putting together our winter outlook for 2015-2016 from their perspective. And we'll also be showing you our perspective. Some of our forecasters have been taking a look at some of the various things that tend to make up seasonal weather and to take a look at how some of those patterns tend to come together. And we have a vision as well of what we expect to see coming up here over the next several months. The first slide we have here is the National Weather Service outlook for temperature across the entire country here for the winter months. And usually when we see an El Nino pattern setting up, this is the kind of temperature pattern that we will expect to see, with warmer temperatures to the northern areas, cooler temperatures to the southern areas, especially areas that are given more precipitation. A lot of cloud cover and moisture in the air keeping the temperatures down. They do kind of go hand in hand, and that's what we're seeing here and what we're expecting. A drier, warmer season to the north and cooler, wetter weather to the south. That's implied by the precipitation maps that we also see from the National Weather Service. A couple of pockets where they're expecting some very dry weather compared to typical winter months, and that's the Northern Rockies and also the Great Lakes area. Now, there is in the midsection of the country a bit of a push for moisture to come on up from the Gulf and also from the southern plains state. And also note the area off to the east, the eastern coastal areas, while New England to the immediate north has some pretty equal chances of precipitation. By the time we get into southern New England and head on down toward New York City and the major cities along the coast, we're seeing the potential for wetter than normal conditions. And in wintertime, that can imply snow, it can imply rain, it can imply mixed precipitation of all different kinds. But this map would indicate that we could certainly expect to see some wet weather on a regular basis across the eastern portion of the country. In fact, following that trend further southward as we get on toward the Carolinas and down toward Florida, the potential for wet weather even greater, with that El Nino effect pushing across the southern part of the country, bringing extra moisture this way. So looks like quite the wet time of year for the southeast U.S., quite a bit of rainfall across the area. And again, that moisture pattern as it heads up the coast could bring us a variety of weather conditions from New England southward toward Washington, D.C. That pretty much sums up the winter outlook for the U.S. Through the National Weather Service, NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. We at Weather Briefings do receive the same kind of information and do the same kind of analyses, and we come up with some things that are similar and some things that are different. And we have our own forecast coming up here for the winter season. And in the next slide, we'll take a look at some of the highlights that we're expecting to see. Some of this is new, some of it's not so new. The drought conditions continuing over California and especially the northern and central areas. Further to the south, we'll see some more moisture coming in later in the season, and there could be some drought relief there, and that would be a big help, but that won't be till later on into the season. We look for a good potential for some ice and snow to set up over the southern plains and the Tennessee Valley, where the battle between the air masses takes place, and where it is warmer than normal in the south, the extreme southern plains. There could even be some severe thunderstorms and even a couple of isolated tornadoes here and there through the winter months, which we don't normally see. We'll expect typical early season snows over the northern Midwest, the upper Midwest, and the northern plains. Colder air settling in to start the season, and then that colder air will tend to trend backwards some as we get on toward the second half of the season. We'll see some moderation. Before that happens, Michigan north into Canada, some late season snowstorms, and again with that moisture flow coming up along the northeastern part of the U.S. and colder air settling in over the east, we expect some strong nor'easters, or at least the potential, and especially the second half of the winter. Little late season rain and snow in the higher elevations in the mountains, and again that ties back into some of the moisture that'll be coming into the southern portion of California during the second half of the season. Here's a pictorial version of what we've been talking about here in the last slide as far as the various times for the precipitation and kind of the highlights for the season in map form. We do look for December to get kind of interesting across the southern plains with a good potential for some ice storms. We'll have the colder air trying to force its way down, and again the very moist and milder air down across the southern plains and the southern U.S., and that's going to set the stage for the likelihood of some icy type weather that could be pretty significant as we get on through the month of December. Later December and January, the Great Lakes, the primary places for the significant snows. And then we get to the second half of the winter and the cooling that's going to take place over New England. That's going to merge with the moisture that's coming up out of the southeast. And a good shot at nor'easter snowstorms for January and February especially across New England and the large cities across the eastern part of the U.S. as well. Weather Briefings has broken the forecast down into 2 half seasons, so we can kind of take a look at things here between now and the middle of January, and then the second half of winter, middle of January on into the end of March. And what we're seeing for the first half of the season here is some below normal temperatures settling into the northern plains especially and the Great Lakes. This area has had quite a bit of warm weather so far this season, and a shift we're starting to see in some of the maps and charts as early as next week will indicate that we will see below normal temperatures settling in time for the Thanksgiving holiday and on into the first week of December. And meanwhile, the temperatures all the way down to the Gulf, which have also been above normal for quite a while, we'll see some near normal readings. The same places that have been seeing some warmer and above normal temperatures will see that through December, January. California, the southern portions of the Rockies and Texas, and also the southeast part of the U.S., the above normal temperatures are expected into January. Matching that up with the precipitation maps, and we do see quite a bit of above normal precipitation in the forecast from the southern lakes all the way eastward to the coast, and pretty much all the way from Maine to Florida as far as wet weather is concerned coming up the coastal area. And we're looking for the same drought conditions that we've been talking about and seeing to remain a fact and in effect across California, Oregon, and down into the southern portions of Arizona. Very little change there. Otherwise, near normal precipitation expected across the remainder of the country for the first half of the winter season. We're seeing the potential for the second half of the winter season to be especially interesting for a good part of the country and not shaping up so much like it is early on in the season. The effects of El Nino seem to want to indicate some movement back toward the west a bit over the second half of the season, and those effects would allow warmer air to push back up into areas that started out quite cold, and it's going to allow for some colder temperatures to spill into New England and the eastern part of the country especially, and temperatures significantly below normal for the second half of the season, quite possible from Maine all the way down into the northern portions of Virginia. And that combined with some of the moisture that we're going to see, again, backs up the forecast for some of the nor'easter possibilities, significant snow and ice storms that could be developing in that part of the area for the second half of winter. Off to the west, the above normal temperatures and the dry conditions move quite a bit further northward and also expand eastward as well. And we will see near normal temperatures across the midsection, which early on, especially the northern plains, had started out quite chilly. We jump over to the precipitation map and pretty much tells the tale as far as the wet, snowy weather expected for the second half of winter across the eastern third of the country, and the wet weather continues across the southern states as well as down into the southern plains. Areas to the north that had seen some earlier snows look quite a bit drier, and near normal precipitation for the Great Lakes and up into Canada, which had earlier on December and January seen some snowfall in the forecast. That'll tend to level out for the second half of winter. In summary, we've justified our forecast with the 3 different dynamics that are in play at this point in time as far as what we're seeing on the charts and what we're seeing from past history. We're expecting the El Nino to play a big factor. It's already continuing to do so and has for a little bit of time here now into the fall. Will continue to exert its influence, especially in the southern areas through the winter months. We'll also have a northern Aleutian high ridge that'll be pushing that colder air down from the north. That'll be a significant piece depending on its exact timing of the amount of cold air that comes on down. And the northern Atlantic oscillation that also plays a factor in the tilting of weather patterns and such. The 3 that are working together, they'll be kind of in various modes throughout the course of the winter months. And as we study those patterns, this was the forecast that we've come up with at this point in time for the winter season. Now, these things are changing, and we will continue to update this winter weather outlook. This one, again, the first half of the second half of November on into January. We may see some signs coming up here in December, some changes in patterns a little bit, and if that's the case, we'll revise this for you, and going into the second half of winter, there may be a little bit of a change in this, but we're fairly confident that we're going to see quite a bit of wet weather in the east, quite a bit of dry weather in the west, and temperature patterns that'll be kind of variable, sometimes milder than average, sometimes chillier than average, and otherwise making for a very interesting winter weather season. So this brings us to the close of this winter weather preview for November 2015, brought to you by Weather Briefings. We have got all kinds of weather service availability for you, and very dedicated, devoted staff of meteorologists. We're constantly on top of the forecasting needs for our clients, and if there's anything that we can do for you, please check us out at www.weatherbriefings.com. We'd be happy to talk with you and customize a package or a trial plan or any number of possible scenarios for you to learn more about what we do and how we can benefit you and your business. Thanks again for joining us, and we hope to hear from you soon.